So, this is going to be the audio book of what I've been studying as a trader mentally and how I want to go about helping those who are possibly struggling with the same things. Right? So, welcome. My name is TRES. The real impact system is what you are attending. This university is designed to push you because that's all I want to do is push you. It's just who I am and always have been. So, as you go through this psychology course, remember that it's not a one and done thing. This is not a test. This is nothing but a teaching that you can continuously run back to and learn from as we are facing things that are eternal, right? These are emotions that will always arrive day, second, and furthermore, constantly because it's a constant factor in life. There's no way around it other than managing these emotions, right? And especially if you're using it in an environment where it's very critical to learning manage the risk of investment in these emotions and the market itself, you have to be able to control these things, or else you're just gonna end up destructive. Because it's not like the jobs that have been built outside of emotionally focused jobs, where they're more logically inclined to deliver. Yes, trading is logically inclined, but it's not there. That's not the purpose. The purpose is you don't know, so you must have faith. That's all it's built on, is that you don't know. And so that in itself is the one thing and reason why it's emotionally driven, because you just don't know. You don't know what they're going to do, no matter how good your metrics are. You just don't know, or else you wouldn't have this thought constantly every time you enter the market or view the market that you aren't certain. You wouldn't have this thought. You just thought that there is no certainty behind what I'm looking at or what I'm investing my time into, my energy, my emotions. If you knew for certain that it was going to do things, you wouldn't have these emotions. I'm not saying you can't get to a point where you're okay with the outcome and you're confidently believing in the things. That's different. That is mastery in one. That is mastery in the sense that you are logically only computing what you know to do. You're following rules, not following emotions. If you're following emotions, what most traders do as discretionary traders, because you are using your brain to think, if you're logically doing things, you aren't thinking. It's either it meets or it doesn't. And if it doesn't, we do this. If it does, we do this. That's not thinking. That is a process. That is something that is defined and constant. It's not changing. You either do it or you don't. Simple. Discretion has this ability to instill equilibrium where you can create a false reality and believe whatever the fuck you want. This doesn't. Logic does not have that ability to instill equilibrium. It offers equilibrium, yes, because that is instilled within the process. You cannot say it's instilled within discretion of traders as a benefit because there's no logical rules behind it anyways, because you don't even know it exists. You can't tell me as a discretionary trader that y'all understand the psychology aspects when you can read the psychology books and they never touch on the things that we are about to go on. You just can't tell me that any of the stuff that you have already learned is what I'm about to give to y'all. So any discrediting, any reiterating, you'll see it. You'll be able to see it because you see something that I have gone about really trying to define and search for. Look, that's what I've always been doing, right? So that's what you've always been doing too. You just didn't know how to think in a manner to get the answer. And so I've been chosen to get the answer. There's nothing wrong with that. You're about to get the answer too. It does not matter who's first. It's like that woman or that man. It doesn't matter who's first. When you get when you get the answer, and when you get your person, is it worth continuing moving forward with? It's all you have to figure out. When you get the answer, do you like it? Do you love it? Doesn't matter. How you react, how you move, because sometimes it's not even reaction. It's just what you've built, essentially, right? Reactive gives you the opportunity to decide. Some things you don't get to decide because you're already instilled with it, all right? That's the difference between logic, which some of us run on, which is survival, I get. No, I would say, yeah, I would say survival because if it's survival, you're logically moving off, okay, that's a threat, we do this. That's not a threat, we do this. And in the sense of calmness, where you can react, you're calm, right? You could be a calm, reactive person, right? I don't get why reactive behavior is such a bad thing or seen as such a bad thing when if you react in a good way, is it not a positive, right? The only reason why we think reactive is a bad thing because, well, most of the time it's in a bad sense. So if you react in trading to a downside move that is going into a fair value gap, is that not what you want to see as a reactive nature? You want to see price react to the attempt to go higher and shoot down into the fair value gap or the order block or the mitigation or the breaker block, anything. It doesn't matter. Your support and resistance level, where you define that this is an optimal entry to go higher. And that is the other option of reaction that you want to see after you get into the trade. So you never think about what is coming before the trade or what reactions or what things or what happens to get you into the trade, right? It's always after you get into the trade. Now let's start thinking. No, let's start thinking before and then pair it with the after thinking because that's the management part. But you can also manage how you get into the trade. Management doesn't only exist in one form. It can exist in your whole system. And so we get so focused on singularity things when we can be plural. It's just going about stacking things in a manner that isn't complex. It has to be simply stacked. And simple stacking creates profound, structured, complex designs and all this stuff. There's no need to rush it. You'll get to the point where it's like, how did you get there? Well, that's why they feel so good about it because it's like, all I did was take my time and just build. That's why they say anything worth building takes time. Yeah, but it's not true. It's just about stacking the processes in the most efficient way. How you go about speed is up to you because if you're really efficient, you're not going to say that power tool sucks because it's really good at doing its job. No, you're going to say that tool is good because it was built off of a foundation that is very structured and can do the job well. If you can efficiently dissect things and build, you are good at what you do. Do not feel bad about that. But understand it must be stacked in layers that are essentially gluing together to create the strong base so that you can continuously stack higher and higher and higher like it's Jenga. Because nobody's poking out the blocks. But if you do poke out the blocks, which is just you pointing to a stack of information and removing it so that you can use to continuously build, right? Is that not you just calling a stack in a algorithm or data structure or just visually being able to see things that we try to do on a computer, you can do as a discretionary trader. You can do as a normal person. Like there's no difference between the two, right? This is a job. It's just computerized to only focus on your brain, how you react. We want to get as many bad reactions out of this person because we have to incentivize movement, interaction. We have to get people in this game. So what's the best thing to do? Focus on the bad things. What's going to trigger you to do anything? What's going to trigger you to feel great? What's going to trigger you to feel bad? Because if I give you both, you will understand that you in a game of manipulation. Just like a manipulator in life. If they give you the good, they give you the bad. They give you the good, they give you the bad. Until you figure out, oh shit, they caught on. Now they have the option to not play anymore. The market makers don't have that option. They gotta play. They gotta make money too. See, the only thing that's different between human manipulation and investor manipulation is that they get incentivized to manipulate. So it's not a bad thing for them. The humans don't get incentivized most of the time to manipulate you. So they could just do it just to do it. And then whenever they feel like, okay, I'm not trying to do it no more, they'll leave, right? Or they'll play face, they'll play like they didn't do nothing wrong, right? That's just how it is. They don't want to play the game. Just like in hide and seek, when you have the advantage over somebody and they get caught, I don't want to play no more. I'm not playing. That's what they're doing, right? They're going back to the kiddish ways and trying to find a way out so that they don't get hurt, because they're insecure. They just knew that you were ignorant to the fact that they could do something like that. And when you found out, they didn't want to do it no more, and they didn't want to face the reality that you could cause harm to them, whether you do or not. They just know that if you do, it's likely going to be magnified way more than what they cause because they know that they are weak. And that's when the reflection on them comes. When you see truth, you are the mirror. When you don't see truth, you do not see the mirror. You don't become a mirror. You do not see the mirror. That's the difference. When you don't live in truth, you do not see the mirror. You cannot be a mirror. Only those who live in the truth gets the mirror because the mirror can be turned to see, it can be turned to make you see yourself, right? Or it can be turned to make me see myself. You only get that weapon if the logic is true and your character is focused on truth. The moment you flip to lies, which is delusion, which is the feminine state of just going wild, you can't be in creative mode and expect yourself to be living the truth. You just can't. That's why when you play in the cheat mode, it says when no achievements can be tracked, nothing, none of your progress is valid, all this other stuff basically. Because you're in a false reality. It's not saying that you can't play the game, you can't enjoy yourself there. You just aren't playing survival. You aren't playing a game of risk. So it's not going to be fair because in that sense, everybody wins. What's the point of having a world? God didn't make the world for no reason. He wants to see his creations evolve. Don't blame me because he made this shit hard. It's just what it is. You got to understand you aren't the only one. Okay? That is the hardest thing to understand is that you have to trust that you aren't the only one. And because we get so fixated on relationships, it feels that being the only one is the only thing you want to have in life. When you need to learn how to separate that emotion when you come to this. And you need to understand you aren't the only one. And then you can understand that and take it back to real life and be like, okay, if this person cheats on me, I know I'm not the only one that actually loves people. I could find somebody else that loves me. Or if this person is just not going to deliver on their promises, it's okay. I know somebody else will deliver on what I'm asking for because they have the same mindset of what I'm looking for, right? Ooh, it sucks because a lot of us go through this and find out, but we never want to teach others. And then we just watch people do the same shit. And it's like, okay, do we really want good if we are the one that's not delivering the good when we wanted it ourselves? Or is that just being bitter because we didn't get the good? And so now I'm not going to help you because I didn't get it. And it's like, okay, you can't call yourself somebody who's evolved and learned from something if you're going to go back and revert to it. Like you got to pick a side. You can't say, I have grown outside of this, but I am going to continuously go back to what I'm doing. And it's confusing. You don't know what you want. It's an indecision. And that in itself is where a lot of us get stuck too, is that we can't be decisive, right? We can't figure out that we want this and we want that. I'm not saying that that is a problem. It's just you have to understand and take another step back as an observer and say, I want these two things. How do I manage my emotions, my time, and my energy now that I have more on my plate? Because there's more that's going to come with more that you grab. If you're going to make shit harder for yourself, well, you got to be able to be okay with the difficulty rising and being able to handle the level of mobs and things that come your way because you chose this level. Don't get mad at me. You chose this level, so you're going to have to play on this level, right? You can't get mad when you get killed for not having armor or not preparing. You decided to play this game, so you need to figure out what to do. I'm not saying you got to play this level, so remember that, right? You live on the level that you want to, but do not sit there and attempt to destroy others because you can't get to the level you want or you can't figure out what you want. That is the reason why a lot of you get hurt because you sit there and want to lash out because you got hurt. I'm not the product of what you went through. I am the product of myself, and what you see in me is not what I see in you. Simple. I'm living in my own world. You living in your own world. If we want to come together, that's when the relationship of what we are going to be sharing as information start getting talked about. What like there's a lot of joining of data that has to be filtered, sorted, deleted, if agreed upon mutually, we delete like everything must be mutual agreement. There's a two-factor authentication that has to constantly go through if you're going to have a relationship. I don't understand why everybody thinks it's a one factor. No, you are signing up to be a two-factor authentication system that is continuously updating, sorting, filtering, deleting, adding all these columns and rows. Like you have to. It's a relationship. It's a literal data formation being formed. It's the same. It's the same. And you learn to unlock the ability to see concepts and structure in life, just like you do in trading. You'll become what you want to be because you built the steps up to heaven. You can also remove them, rearrange them, turn it the other way around. Like you can add the wrong block. You can have mobs on the stairs. Like there's no limitation to what is on those stairs or what is on that way up to the top of heaven. Like y'all think it's just a straight up. No. That's just the easiest way to convey and get you seeing the basics of it. So that was the 20-minute intro. Let's get into the first module, which is life, addiction, and control shame. Read Lecture 1. The addiction nobody names. Life. Most people think they long for excitement because they have big dreams. But what if they are craving for just activity and a simple way to avoid feeling what happens when we stop? When we are not busy, not scrolling, not planning, a restless shows up. A restlessness shows up. Not just a restlessness shows up. It whispers, do something, do something. Please, just do something for me. And in our age, we often confuse stimulation with meaning, such as scrolling news, checking notifications, buying things we really don't need, entering relationships quickly, or leaving them very, very abruptly. These are all forms of seeking sensation to avoid confronting the stillness. The same pattern shows up when we watch our lives, like a market ticker. We constantly, continuously check for these updates. Did she respond? Did he respond? Geez, I wonder if that post I made got just, at least 500 likes. I could do that. But if right now it's at 397, I need more, I need more. Did my body show improvement after the one workout? Right? A lot of us think that instant gratification is just profound. It must be scaled to enormous returns. And so that one workout, that's all I need. That's all I need. One workout, you know? Our nervous system interprets movement as safety because a lot of us grew up in environments where being still meant being alone with our feelings. And if you've been around people who don't like you expressing your feelings, you'll feel suppressed. And if you are around people who want you to express your feelings, you may feel very focused on being vocal with everything. And that stimulation within your body of your voice just continuously expressing may not be a great thing, right? Because what if you don't know what you're talking about? If you're misled by those people who want you to express, you could be talking bullshit or talking shit, right? Over time, though, we teach ourselves that volatility feels alive, which is why you see so many people living a fast life, while boredom feels like death. Those who are in, I guess you could say, 9 to 5s feel like shit, when in reality, they're all doing the same thing, working to hide rather than just living and being okay with what is needed to live. Consider your typical day. How often do you reach for your phone simply because there's a pause in conversation, right? You're talking to somebody and there's this drift of silence. And instead of just admiring the noise of what's naturally there when you aren't talking, You reach for your phone because it's easier to face reality when you're in your head, visualizing something that could change and stimulate you to think differently than what you're experiencing as thinking with silence. Because thinking differently with sound is easier. It's easier to change channels because you're being fed noises. Sometimes you don't have noise when you're silent. You don't have that bird. You don't have that printer, that clock, pen tapping, the echoes of others walking. How often do you fill your calendar to avoid being with yourself? A lot of you like to fill up and make yourself seem so busy and taking on so much that really isn't even yours to take on. Or even if you do decide to want to take on just because of the drive to be better, you're still just running away from yourself because there's no need to work that much, to be that busy, unless you create a life to be that busy. But guess what? There's a meaning behind why you did it. And if it's outside of yourself, it has to be you avoiding yourself. It has to be because doing for others is not doing for yourself. So you are avoiding yourself. You're choosing to not pick yourself. And that in itself is avoiding yourself. This is not a condemnation. It is an invitation to see that our culture of constant engagement is built on a form of addiction few of us name. Addiction, in this sense, is not about substances. It's about needing something external to regulate our internal state. Real growth begins when we sit with an empty moment and not immediately fill it. This week, experiment with no action in the morning. Wake up and do nothing for 10 minutes. Do not check your phone or plan your day. Just feel the discomfort, the urge to leave, the fear you are wasting time. Notice where that sensation appears in your body. Notice what stories you attach to stillness. Perhaps you will hear this voice saying you are lazy or worthless if you are not constantly being productive. Perhaps you will notice a sadness or a loneliness that busyness helps you avoid. If we can name this addiction to stimulation, we can begin to free ourselves. We can learn to choose activity because it aligns with our values, not because we cannot tolerate quiet. We can find meaning in experiences that settle rather than spike our nervous systems. This is the foundation. for engaging with life on our own terms rather than being driven by unseen forces.